Okay. Well, hello guys. Thank you for joining me and for watching the movie También la Lluvia. I made a slideshow talking about the movie, going a little bit more in depth about the um a lot of everything, like a little bit of everything. Like yeah, so this is the slideshow. So a little bit on the film backstory. También la Lluvia was released in 2010, which was 10 years after the water wars in Cochabamba. Um, It was directed by Isiar Boyain. It's the lady on Believe in Your Left, like curly hair. That's her, that's the director. And it was produced by Paul Laverty and it was written by Paul Laverty and produced by Juan Gordon. And one of the questions that we had to answer for the slideshow was who funded the filming of the movie. And this movie was funded by French, Spanish, and Mexican companies. The director really didn't want to use government backed entities because she wanted to keep her artistic freedom in the film. So that's an interesting point. And the creation of the film reflects the political and cultural climate of the early 2000s, particularly focusing on topics such as globalization, colonialism, and social justice. Um, the film is set in Bolivia, Cochabamba, and it revolves around a film crew. They travel there from the US, I believe, or Spain to film a movie about Christopher Columbus coming to the American continent and how he exploited indigenous people. The director of the movie in the movie is called Sebastian, and he basically just wants to like show the real history. And at the beginning of the movie, as you guys saw, he's like the nice guy. He wants to be just and be as true to the real history in the story. But towards as the movie goes on, we see how Sebastian kind of turns bad in a way. Like he doesn't really care about fair wages for the indigenous people participating in the movie, or when the water protests get violent, he doesn't really stick to the people that worked for him. So sociocultural and historical context. También La Lluvia connects historical events such as the coming of conquistadores to the American continent and protests that took place in Cochabamba, Bolivia, due to the government's attempt to privatize the region's water supply and to make it illegal to collect um, even water rain, which is where the title of the movie comes from, even the rain, También La Lluvia, because they wanted to tax people or charge, like they were charging fees to people that were collecting rainwater in Bolivia. Um, and the film draws parallels between historical exploitation and current contemporary exploitation of indigenous people in Latin America. Some cinematic approaches used in this film are handheld camera techniques, sorry, that are used usually in documentary style. Um, Horas, I've heard the word. Documentary style footage, which blurs the line between fiction and reality, making the characters' problems and fears feel more real to the viewers. The themes, um, some of the themes in the movie are, like I said earlier, colonization and systematic marginalization of indigenous people, that has persisted through centuries in Latin America. The exploitation of natural resources such as water in current times and gold when conquistadores first came, and Christopher Columbus, who I think was a really big symbol in the movie because he's like a metaphor of a government, and it goes back and forth between like showing the history of him coming and then how his legacy reflects in our government now. Well, Latin America's government. And injustice, we see injustice all throughout the film. We see it with the Bolivians' low wages, like the extras that are working in the movie, working, building the sets. They're not getting paid fairly as compared to the Spanish cast members that are traveling there. And the message of the movie, um, there are many messages, but I think the overall message is just well, besides the message, the movie is a critique of the historical exploitation that's contributed to current the current marginalization of people in Latin American countries. The example here is Bolivia, but I think it's all throughout Latin America. And how power structures have been built to oppress and perpetuate inequality amongst people. And then the analysis questions. I'm going to start first with the first question. So it is, what is the significance of water throughout the film? How does it parallel gold, and how do natural resources have historically acted as symbols of oppression? And whoever wants to go first can unmute themselves.
I can go ahead. Um, I I mean, water ends up having the same significance in the movie as it does in the fictional movie that they're making in the movie with gold. In that parallel, in the same way, they're both exploited resources, and both resources that would belong to the indigenous peoples, but were like taken away from them, and they were restricted from it.
Thank you for going first.
Oh, okay. Did I also have to answer that, or?
Yeah, you can answer.
Well, I was gonna say the same thing. Yeah, it's basically another resource that has been taken away from the indigenous communities. Yeah, I mean it's almost like, yeah, it's very parallel to the past, colonization and, stealing of resources, from when Columbus came to the Americas, and how a believing government is, like like colonization is taking water from the indigenous communities.
Thank you guys for answering these questions. The second question goes, how does También la Lluvia explore the complexities of power dynamics amongst the film crew and the indigenous people that work as extras for the film?
Yeah, I can answer this one. Well, you kind of had similar answers to how, to what you said before. It shows kind of how people are valued differently, and how, the indigenous crew members were being paid less than the European crew members or actors that were participating in the film. And I think it just kind of represents this kind of not prioritization, but this like wanting or valuing, more, you know, European people, I guess, or, ideas, um, than, like Latin American or other, community features. Or yeah, that's kind of how I saw it.
Thank you. And then if I can go straight to the other question if you guys want, if you don't want to answer this one, we can go like on and off. How does Costa's character development show resilience and unity when the protests get out of control?
I can go ahead. Well, in the beginning, he's kind of like a little more indifferent towards the indigenous people, or like not as sympathetic as like the director was trying to be, or like the rest of the crew was trying to come off. And he ended up being like the one crew member that stuck behind when the protests got really bad, to go out of his way to help the little girl and like her family. And I think that reflects like his transformation into like someone that didn't seem as sympathetic towards the community there, to someone that became like sympathetic and like was going out of their way to help the people there.
Yeah, especially because like all of his crew members were like telling him not to help Daniel and his daughter. So I don't think anyone was expecting him to go out of his way to rescue this little girl. Then the next question is, what are some parallels between the historical colonialism we already know of and current forms of exploitation employed by powerful people to benefit monetarily?
Yeah, if it's cool, I can answer this one. Some parallels that we see from, a historical colonialism and exploitation of, like entities is that there is really like no restriction and no, I guess I want to say like remorse to people that, to the people that are getting their resources taken away from. It always seems that there's always this power dynamic of, um, you know, like some of sort of entity or like power that's kind of that's imposing, um, like, the resources being stolen from other indigenous communities, and it kind of goes unchecked. I feel like that's maybe more present like in the modern day, like, I guess when we talk of policy and overall regulation, that's something that comes to mind because it seems like a lot of corporations now aren't really being checked or regulated on how they, do their business, and that, that can be many different there can be many different ways to look at it, but that's like a parallel that I got from watching the film.
Thank you, Pedro. Next question, last question is, how does Daniel's personal experiences and perspectives shape the narrative of the film?
Um, Throughout the film, Daniel is trying. Well, he's like the part of the community. He's a leader in the community. He's like participating in this film and getting treated like badly as along with the rest of his the people there. And he's seeing how his people are being affected both by the company that's trying to coming in and like taking their water, and the film crew that's trying to feel good about themselves and tell this like true story of like how their people, their ancestors were exploited and mistreated, all the while paying them measly wages and not treating them right, and kind of turning a blind eye to what is going on with the water. But at the same time, he's like standing up for the community and he's participating in protests, and he like ultimately gets arrested for all of this. So I think his experiences and his perspective really show like the POV of the people of the community that was being exploited there, both by the company and the film crew. Uh, yeah, you're muted, Camila. You're
You're
muted.
muted.
Sorry. I just I said thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to watch the movie and join the film and join the Zoom meeting and answer these questions. I hope you guys enjoyed the film. This was my favorite film of the class. I believe we watched like 13 films or something like that. Yeah, I definitely liked this and I watched it 2 times. So hope you guys liked it as well. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.